When you match your mix with the pros, does it match in loudness and does it retain its clarity at that loudness? This is one of the biggest struggles in music, especially in electronic music where loudness is such a big priority. This can be very hard to achieve. This has been a big point of frustration for me, and I know it is for so many electronic producers. So what we're looking at today is what things in the mixing process that may be holding you back from achieving a loud and clear mix similar to the pros. Because unfortunately for all of us, getting there is not as simple as slapping a limiter on at the end and smashing the mix into it. Let's get into the video. Number 1, you're not compressing enough. So compression is a very versatile tool. It can be used in so many ways and in so many areas of music. And one of those areas is to control the dynamic range. Dynamic range is the difference between the loudest and quietest parts of a signal and is a way of measuring how dynamic and expressive music is. We like to have dynamic music, but at the same time, too dynamic music is a limiter for loudness, and this is where compression comes in. So what I've pulled up here is a very natural sounding piano. It sounds like this. And pianos are very dynamic in nature, meaning if we export this piano bit, we see a very large difference in level between the loud and quiet parts of the piano. This is not necessarily a bad thing, but when we're looking for loudness, the dynamic nature of the piano is really not going to help us. In fact, it's going to fight against us because loudness is both measured and perceived by humans through sustained loudness. And since the body and tail of the piano is sitting at a very low level the majority of the time, with these dynamics, it will always be measuring on the quiet side. Now, this is where compression comes in, because with compression we can control the dynamic range and make the piano both seem and measure louder. So let's apply compression. Now, if we export and take a look at the dynamics, we'll find that the body has been brought up in volume and the very dynamic part has been brought down. So we have significantly limited the dynamic range because now the loudest and quietest parts of the signal are much closer together. Let's take a listen to the difference. Right? So the average level is higher and much more sustained in the compressed version. But here's the kicker. Look at the levels of these two versions now. The compressed version is now measuring 6 dB lower than the uncompressed version while being perceived as louder. Guess what we can do with the compressed version now? We can bring it up to the same level as the original, and now let's listen to the difference. So in the end, we've kept the same height of the waveform, but we've significantly brought up the body, and we end up with a much louder version of the piano while keeping its character. Number 2, you're not saturating enough. So saturation is once again a tool that can be used in many different ways and have many different use cases. One of them is to increase the perceived loudness through the introduction of harmonics. And what is harmonics? Harmonics are overtones being generated by the source material. So with the test tone at 1000 Hz, we see harmonics being generated at 2K, 3K, 4K, and so on. And these harmonics are essentially extra material that can add body and thickness to the source material. So now, if we take the same piano and apply saturation to it, we get this. The effect is very subtle, and some might say that this doesn't even make any meaningful audible difference, but this is very deliberate on my part because saturation isn't necessarily always about enhancing the signal with more material. What's interesting about this result is that we've kept the sound almost the same, but once again, look at the level we're peaking at. We're peaking at a lower level, meaning we've just saved ourselves some headroom without meaningfully changing the sound. And for loudness, this is absolutely a win. Now, we could choose to be happy with the increase in perceived loudness and let the level stay where it's currently at. Or we could do as we did before and match the peak level of the original. And when we do that, we get this. So once again, more loudness for virtually no cost here. Extremely effective when used right. Number 3, clip before limiting. When we use a limiter, we need to be mindful of transients and peaks in our track, because limiters are designed to react to these, right? They're designed to catch transients and turn them down to avoid distortion. And that's all cool, but when a limiter does this on your master, everything in your track gets turned down, and you'll end up with a more quiet track overall. One way we can combat this is by controlling transients and by generally keeping the peaks of different elements in check. What I like to do is clip in multiple stages, and I usually clip my big sound buses like the lead bus, the kick, the reverb, and so on. Because what happens then is that when the different elements meet at the final limiter, those elements already have the transients and peaks managed. So now the limiter can work on the overall level instead of being triggered by small events of transients. Let me show you how this works. So we have a track here, and currently clipping is applied on the mix groups. With clipping on, the peaks in the lead are well managed, and the limiter will only have to work on stuff like impacts and cymbals and so on. Now let's see what happens when we take the clippers off. Now the limiter has to work a lot more, but this isn't really a problem because it can still manage it just fine. It could become a problem, however, when we move to the more intensive parts of the track. So let's move to the part with the kick, and then I'll activate this little audition button, because this will let us hear exactly what the limiter is reacting to. So this is without the clippers. And now with the clippers. So we can hear that when the clippers are on, the limiter has to work a lot less. And generally this leads to less artifacts, cleaner limiting, and louder masters. So let's do a comparison of when clipping is used on the big groups and when clipping is off entirely. So there's definitely a loudness difference between the two. The version where clipping is happening before the limiting is clearer and louder, and this is the case both during the lead alone and with the kick. So this definitely shows that transients and peaks have a big impact on limiters and how they perform. And if you're looking for more clarity and loudness, you should consider managing the peaks before running the signal into your limiter. Alright guys, that's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.